Welcome to our special Money and Esports series on Sports Geek. In this episode, I share our panel discussion about all things esports and broadcasting.
Welcome to Sports Geek, the podcast built for sports digital and sports business professionals. And now, here's your host who thinks most pro teams will have a Twitch channel by year's end, Sean Callanan.
Thanks, DJ Joel. Yes, my name is Sean Callanan from Sports Geek. You're listening to Sports Geek, the podcast. This special sub-series of Money in Esports is a rebroadcast of our event in Sydney. This was the final panel of the day discussing the world of broadcasting in esports and discussing it with Lewis Mitchell from Twitch, Ben Green from ESL, and Jackie Garrett from GGWP Academy. We discussed things like streaming, the differences between broadcasting and shoutcasting, how esports broadcasts are different, metrics around Twitch and understanding them and how they're different to other platforms, and even we discussed the move of Ninja from Twitch to Mixer. I really hope you enjoy this conversation. Tomorrow we will be out and in force at Melbourne Esports Open. If you haven't secured your tickets yet and want to come along, you can do so at sportsgeekhq/MEO 2019. Get a discounted ticket. If you haven't got tickets to our MEO guided tour, you can do so at sgesports.com/MEO tour. If you want to discuss esports after listening to this series, please reach out. Go to sgesports.com to book in a call. I'm happy to talk about what I've learnt being in the space about esports and understanding how it can be leveraged. But please enjoy this chat about esports and broadcasting with Lewis Mitchell, Ben Green and Jackie Garrett. Last panel for today, talk about broadcast. So if I can get our panellists to come up. Lewis Mitchell from Twitch. Ben Green, who's had shout-outs already today from ESL and Shoutcaster. And Jackie Garrett from Take a Seat. And let's have I think, had a few mentions so far today. Lewis, you've done all right.
A few Twitch mentions?
A few Twitch mentions.
Yeah.
We want to talk about broadcast and how it's different. And I think last time I caught up with you, I mentioned that I was at a conference that was targeting youth marketing. And I think it was maybe 300 marketers in the room. And I said, who's heard of Twitch? And still not a lot, not as many hands as, now I'm in the space, went up as I thought should have gone up. Now, so what's you're out there as you're working for Twitch. What's your role and how do you pitch Twitch?
Sure. So my title is partner lead for Australia and New Zealand. My role kind of gets split into a couple of different facets. So on one side, it's about content retention. We have big influencers that build their own businesses, build their own content, and build their own brand essentially on the Twitch platform. We look after them in the same way that you'd have an account manager for your brands. If you were a PR company, we look after our influencers and our content creators in the same way. The other side of it is content acquisition. So very much talking about the benefits of Twitch. What do we do that's new? Why has it become this behemoth? Even if the general public still needs to hear about it. What are the tools? What was it that drew people towards Twitch in the first place? And so an education piece from that perspective. And then from the other side, it's marketing and trying to find the right people that we think are going to really enjoy the content that we're bringing on there.
Yes, thank you. Because I think if that audience was under 24, they're all putting their hand up, and that's the case that when I've speaking to marketing managers, brand managers, people new to the space, and they're starting to understand esports. That's where they're like, huh? And that's where you get that. But if you talk to anyone, under the age of 24 that's into gaming, Twitch is where their go-to channel.
Yeah, we've really got a lot of the organic audience, and anyone that has been in the gaming space, anyone that's looked at anything competitive within gaming has ended up on Twitch at some point or another.
So I've done a terrible job of introducing everyone and setting up the panel. Lewis and I are just having a conversation. So I will get around it because I want to talk to Jackie around what you do with GGWP and explaining what that is. And we'll talk to Ben as a shoutcaster and also working at ESL. So I'll start with you first, Jackie. What is GGWP? And explain more about what you do.
Sure. My name's Jacqueline Garrett and I'm the founder and CEO of GGWP Academy. Stands for Good Game Well Played for those not in the gaming space. We are basically developing the first e-learning platform that will teach gamers how to monetize a career in gaming. So we are teaching them to become smarter influencers, essentially. I guess... more to the point, content creators. Influencers is a bit of a no-no in gaming, isn't it?
You're negotiating with yourself on what you should call them all. But yeah, definitely. And the reason I wanted you on the panel was to talk about, and because we've talked about it today with Twitch and the wider piece of gaming and streaming and esports. And the piece that you're looking at is one, how do gamers use a platform like Twitch to engage an audience, which is what Lewis was talking about. And then how are they a part of that ecosystem? Yep. And then the part that we've been talking about is how do you help an esport athlete that plays, hopefully, on a Friday night, but then how do they engage in a platform like Twitch and understand that platform?
Sure.
And that's pretty much what you're looking to do and training people up on how to use platforms like Twitch?
Yeah, essentially we're teaching them how to build a personal brand, how to build and grow their audience, and then how to leverage that audience for sponsorship. The second half of our platform will end up being a marketplace that creates a more authentic link between the gamers or their brand and the brands that are looking to influence through them. So, yeah.
Cool. So, Ben, you're unique as someone that wears multiple hats. You have a hat rack yourself as a shoutcaster, but then also work in business development for ESL, which is a promoter in the space and has been mentioned before. Can you explain what a shoutcaster is and how they are different, even though you've got all these accolades and pats in the back already today? What does a shoutcaster do?
Yeah, so a shoutcaster is essentially a commentator for video games, for esports, I suppose. I would say it is quite similar to traditional sports, but in the same vein, I think it's got a lot of difficulties that come with it that you don't necessarily get in traditional sports.
What would they be?
For me, so if you're a cricket commentator, right? We're watching the Ashes at the moment. Some of these guys, they've grown up playing cricket. They played cricket. They played for the Australian cricket team. They played in the Ashes, and now they commentate cricket, and they're in their 60s.
That's pretty much the sports commentary path.
Yeah. I play video games. I play lots of video games, but I've commentated probably 15 to 20 different esports in the last 2 years, some of which, as we said, you're developing the rules as you go. Sometimes there's nothing necessarily to base it on. You haven't been able to watch 60 years worth of this video game. It came out 3 months ago. And now you're trying to commentate something that's, it's kind of evolving as you go. So it's quite different.
But it is the similarities is you're trying to explain what's happening, weave a story around it, try to build the drama. We did see your face at the Fortnite Summer Smash, and Rob talked about it. It was still, there was debates on, is it an esport? Will people watch it? And so you get called up to say, hey, can you commentate this game? What was that kind of like getting involved? And it's not just yourself, a multiple casting team, working with different people. What was that experience like? Yeah,
it was very cool. Obviously, Fortnite Summer Smash at the Australian Open was a very exciting event. One of the coolest events I worked on for sure. For us, it was a combination of an international team coming down, some of those big influencers, some of the guys who actually did end up commentating the Fortnite World Cup that we saw just the other week, and then working with commentators here in Australia who, again, not all of us are Fortnite casters. It's very hard to go out and commentate Fortnite because there's not actually that much competitive Fortnite going on. You can't really go and commentate someone playing a game on Twitch if it's not a competitive game because it's a very different style of game. So for me, Rob was talking a little bit earlier about how, as part of the process to get everything approved, we did a bit of a secret test run in the ESL studios. And I'd never shoutcast Fortnite before. And I jumped in there and had to shoutcast with the guys back in America watching, waiting for the tick of approval about whether we could run it or not. And, doing the research and learning as much as I can. And we got it across the line in the end. So it was good, but definitely the pressure was on.
So we've heard, again, from traditional sports, if I'm looking at, AFL or cricket, you hear Bruce McAvaney, who's, the doyen of sports broadcasters here, puts in months of preparation for an event like the Brownlow or the grand final to have all those snippets. What's preparing for a tournament, like that, whether it's, all the different titles you do, what is the preparation for that kind of cast?
Yeah, it's similar but different, I suppose, which is kind of the vein, right, that we get between traditional sports and esports. There's a lot of watching videos of old content, watching how the teams qualified, a lot of research, the numbers, how are they playing, who are they playing. Some of the difficulties, though, will be that maybe you can't find out information about the players who are playing. You could have a 16-team tournament that's the finals for teams around the world, but one of those teams is from China. It was only broadcast in China. The broadcast was in Chinese. All of the information about the teams is in Chinese. How do you learn about that team, particularly for a very new sport? So there's a lot of difficulties there as well. I think as well, again, the multi-game aspect also makes it a little bit more difficult in that, you might cast 2 or 3 or 4 different titles in 1 week, potentially, depending on how busy you are, and trying to move between them and the different terms. If you're casting Fortnite, if you say the word kill, you're going to get a text message from someone that says, why did you say the K word? It's eliminations. There's that sort of thing as well. So, it's all very dependent on the game and the publisher, and, again, similar but different.
And I guess the unique thing about Twitch is you get that feedback instantaneously. You don't have to go to another platform. You don't have to go anywhere to go, wonder what they think, right? So, Lewis, again, if people aren't familiar with Twitch, it's, integrated chat feature. Like, what are some of the things that I guess you learn, from that, and why it makes Twitch so unique?
Yeah, it's funny. So people see Twitch as this new video platform. And yes, it is absolutely a video platform. It's like the new television. And in our mind, it's not actually really the new television. It's more, if you want to put it into an old media perspective, it's more new form AM radio, where you actually get personalities, and they will have, as long as they want to talk about particular topics that they want to talk about. People tune in for the personalities, and they tune in for specific reasons, but then they want to be part of the conversation. So in the same way you've got talkback radio, you've got people that are in the chat system giving you, like you say, that feedback, whether it's through emojis, which is a big thing on Twitch, or just copy pasting things. If there's a lot going on in the chat, you'll tend to find the same things will be posted again and again. It's in the same frame as when Liverpool walk onto the pitch in Anfield, you've got everyone singing "You'll Never Walk Alone." You'll have the same sort of thing where people will post the same thing of like, spam this noodle to help skadoodle, and you've just got a whole bunch of people doing that sort of thing. It's the same concept. But then you've got the individual creators where people want to talk and sit and interact with these guys for a while. So it really hits on both ends of the spectrum of seeing the best of the best playing these games. That I play that game and I want to learn more about that game, like we saw with the Nielsen data, but then also all the way down to I just want to have a conversation with someone, and you can find somebody playing a game which isn't necessarily esports, but just a relaxed, I enjoy the game, let's have a conversation together.
So this is a question for both Ben and Jackie, as far as like, so how do you, because at some point the broadcast becomes so successful as a caster or as a streamer, it's hard to keep up. How do you appropriately dip into the chat with and still stay on point with the game? So maybe first you, Ben.
Yeah, I don't read chat. As a commentator,
Yep.
You can, and I know some people who do, but there's going to be a lot in there, and it's going to say a lot of things, and you're not going to like all of it. If everyone who watched the footy got to send you a message that told you what they thought of you, how you're playing footy or what you're talking about, you're not going to like it all. So for me personally, in that regard, I ignore it. If I go back and I'll watch my VOD, my review, the the past broadcast, and I'll take note of comments then. But on the fly, it just tilts me, so I won't do it.
But it's just too hard.
Yeah, it is too hard. And I think even for influencers and IRL streamers and people playing at home, you got to interact as well. But I think you get to the point, right, Jackie, where there's so many people that you need to really pick and choose.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, some streamers will only interact with their subs, people who actually subscribe to their channel. Some content creators will try and keep up with chat as much as they can, but focus more on their game. It really just depends on what they're playing, their personality, and what their chat is like. But they would also have people in their chat called moderators, people who will actually help them by answering questions or prompting bots or those sorts of things as well. So there are other ways of controlling that.
Yeah, but it is a community piece, and in other channels they would say, hey, tweet this and it'll be over here. Whereas with Twitch, you can just say, put a 1 in a chat if you think we're going to win, and you see there, and you see all the ones, and then there's this one guy puts in a 3 just because he's unique, right? Or puts in an emoji. It's like, it's not a number, mate. And so that's ways that they can go backwards and forwards. But I think also the piece is the fact that there's this community being built around it, the fact that a streamer or an esport or a broadcast can have moderators and the like that are in the chat and part of that piece, and it's sort of like having a chat, a producer in a sense.
I think that also goes further, that when a streamer creates a community around themselves, they build this loyalty bubble that works not only in Twitch but also in their Discord channels. They take that community cross-platform, and that's where you really begin to see the potential ROI that a content creator can actually have. When you see that crossover of channels and that loyalty that spans different platforms, I think that's where you see the real value from a brand perspective. Yeah,
so the way I've been describing it for many years is developing your own digital cheer squad. Right, and the Twitch chat and the people in either a stream or later in the OPL match, the people that are they're at the very top of the avid fan, because they're in there and engaged in that space. But it does provide unique feedback, and like, again, if you're looking at peak parts of the broadcast, something happens, you do get, holy hell, what? Oh my goodness, or someone mispronounces something. Holy hell, oh my goodness. It's right there.
And to kind of give context as well of why Twitch became the platform that people came to, is before it really came along, I'll openly say that esports really grew at the same pace as Twitch grew. Because before that, there was nothing to watch esports on. There were some odd European channels that might have put some competitive gaming on. Competitive gaming has existed since, Pong, since the days that a competition started. In fact, the whole reason that it got invented was because 2 professors creating the game wanted to see who could be better at it. Anyway, but it wasn't accessible for a lot of people. So when you've got a platform that you have a lot of people who want to feel validated that I like this. Do other people like this? They then find this platform and they can chat about it, because that was the other really big piece about it and why we really put a lot of emphasis on the chat. That's when you start getting this congregation, and why Twitch becomes synonymous with the world of esports, because honestly, we were the first really to give it that global push and to give it that global platform that a lot of people went, oh, I really like this. And now it's just become the behemoth that it is.
There's I think it's the Startup podcast that did a profile and went back on the startup of Twitch. And for those who don't know, it started as Justin TV.
That was a lot of illegal sport on that platform.
Yeah, no, but
a lot of illegal sport.
But there was and it started and it became a streaming platform, and there was a lot of legal issues, and pretty much they went, well, if we have to stop all of this, and there was a lot of people streaming things they didn't have rights to, and I think it was 3% of the viewership of what it was gaming.
Yep. And it also helped the 4 co-founders that started the platform were also huge gamers. So it's like, all right, well, we like this. And
we'll just pivot.
Just pivoted to that, absolutely.
And, and then, fast forward to go from, 3% of the platform to go, we'll do this gaming, to be all gaming, and then Amazon come along, right, and just go whack with this big bag of cash, because they're Amazon. How has Twitch changed?
Honestly, Amazon, when they acquire companies, are really good at going. And there's actually a bit of an anecdote from when I was chatting to one of our co-founders when they went to Jeff's house and he sat down with them and literally.
Was he wearing the jacket that he always
they went
wears?
to his boathouse and it was a 4-bedroom house on the lake of this huge Seattle mansion. And the first thing he said to them was, "I don't get this. I don't get it. What is it?" And they had to sit for a fair few hours kind of explaining why it, and the reason that he wanted to talk to them is it was the 4th highest bandwidth user in the US at the time. And they would literally explain it to him. It's like, I don't fully understand it, but obviously, to paraphrase, the kids do. So Amazon has always been very good at, hey, we understand, you understand this business better than we do. We'll help you with the processes because we've got to the high end of town, and you will need to get there, and there will be certain things we need to step in on. But mostly, they've just let us kind of do our own thing. We're in a completely different city. We're based in San Francisco. They're in Seattle, and we talk to each other. Depends on the department, but some departments only talk to them once a year. So
very cool. So Ben, I want you to change hats now. Take your headset off and put your ESL hat on. Talking about esports, tell me a little bit about your role in, I guess, selling esports in this region.
Yeah, so I'm one of the partnership manager at ESL here in Australia. So we are ESL being the world's largest independent esports company. So essentially, we don't own any games, we don't make games, but we make leagues and products around those games, either for ourselves that we sell sponsorships on, or for publishers or partners like Tennis Australia. Where we go and we do the legwork to make it happen from start to finish, potentially. So for me, I work with all our partners here in Australia and some globally as well. That could be publishers, that could be sponsors like Intel, who are one of our bigger partners worldwide. So it really just depends. For me, it's an interesting day-to-day for sure, between trying to reply to calls and do emails in amongst an Overwatch broadcast. It is fun for sure.
And so, there's been discussion again. The landscape keeps moving from year to year. How has the conversation changed over the last couple of years, and what are sponsors looking for when they're saying, "Oh, esports, heard it's hot. Saw this kid on Fortnite on my feed," and they come in and go, "Yeah, what's the next steps? What are they asking for?" From a sponsorship point of view, especially these, I guess, newer sponsors coming on board. Yeah,
things have definitely changed in the last couple of years for sure. For me, I really noticed it when the Intel Extreme Masters, when we brought that down to Australia for the first time. That was the first moment, I think, for a lot of local brands, where I think esports is one of those things where you have to see to believe. You have to go and experience. You might say, I don't necessarily understand it at this point, but you can go and you can sit in an arena like at Kudos when all of a sudden there's 7,000 Aussie fans cheering for an Australian team. You're like, I don't know what's happening on the screen, but this feels like sport to me. Yep. This feels the same. So as for us, those non-endemic partners have been getting interested. Firstly, they want to understand the space, but they also want to own parts of the space in the same way. You don't just want to put your logo on something, right? You want it to be genuine. You want to do it in the right way, and you want to be able to control, I suppose, some of that content. So in the same way that, there's you got the KFC buckets on the NRL for with try no try when it goes to the bunker. We'll have a Macca's play of the game in Overwatch. And Twitch chat goes off when that comes out. Yep. They love their Macca's. I think for me, the sponsors, they want to come in, they want to understand. They want, I think, to invest at a lower level to begin with. But once they can get their head around it, and maybe their agency gets their head around it, it certainly moves towards, all right, how can I own a piece of this content? How can I genuinely interact with this audience?
Yeah, so like I was at Intel Extreme Masters at Kudos earlier this year, and like watching that audience, and you're right, it's like looking at Bay 13 20 years ago at the cricket, right? And all the fans stretching with Merv Hughes, because that's what they were. They were 22-year-olds having a whole bunch of fun at the cricket, and this is what was happening. And so you've got, and it's what we discussed with Rob, you've got this in-event thing happening, and the casters are part of it, the fans are part of it. But I think the unique piece was that how Twitch was part of it. One, you've got the broadcast and people are watching, but then how Twitch chat got involved. And effectively, the Twitch chat just started saying, "What are the Aussie fans doing?" And it was red flag to a ball. And then 8,000 fans just started singing Advanced Australia Fair for no reason other than someone goaded them in the Twitch chat, which caused the Twitch chat to then, because I think actually ASL put the Twitch chat up on the screen for deliberately.
Just long enough.
Just long enough, and they've seen it and they've gone, now we're going. And so for the next 20 minutes, they did Advanced Australia Fair, they sang their ABCs, they sang the Sesame Street song, and again, they were just having fun. And because the other part of it is, what are those broadcast numbers at an event like IEM?
I think, look, can't quote me on this. It's out there. It's a known thing. I think last year we hit 20 million, not concurrent, but total. I think we got to 30 million in 2019. So not bad numbers for an event that isn't League of Legends World Finals. There are a number of IEM events every year in the same way that the Formula One has stops.
Yep.
The Intel Extreme Masters has stops around the world. So for the Australian leg on our time zone, we're actually very, very happy with that.
Oh, completely. But it was sort of like Twitch chat in real life. I think
great. That was one of the best things I've ever seen, to be honest, being live and experiencing that as well. And kind of coming back to what you were saying around brands understanding it more, the best way that I've found to try and explain to people getting into the space is, the scene from The Life of Brian where what have the Romans ever done for us? If you think about getting into the space, you're always going to have, because gamers have come from the world of your basement dwellers, nobody does that, only weird people kind of do that. They want to feel like they are being accepted, and this whole thing is being accepted. And when I come back to that, what have the Romans ever done for us? It's like, well, what are you doing for our scene? How are you coming in and helping our scene and not just throwing a label on it and going, right, that's it, we've done esports now. And whenever there are going to be people that are going to ask that question, but then you are going to get people going, the aqueduct, in the same way that you're going to have people going, no, Macca's is doing good work with this now. And people they're enabling us to do more of this stuff now. So that is a big thing to think about whenever you're coming into the world of esports or gaming is, are you coming to meet these people halfway and understand what's going on? Or are you coming in just trying to do the old traditional, we'll slap a logo on, it'll be fine. Because that really doesn't work.
And it hasn't, though. I mean, we have seen brands go in and go, cool, young demographic. Oh, we'll just run our footy TVC in there. And it's like, well, no, like I said before, the bullshit meter, the authenticity is so important.
I was just going to say that esports is still at a point where brands coming in with some money can actually make a significant difference. It can mean the difference between a league existing and not existing. It can mean the difference between players playing at home for the finals for a $50,000 prize pool, or players playing in front of a 300 or 400 person audience where they get to meet their fans. Like, we are still at that point where that sort of funding can make a huge difference to what you see and what the product looks like. For us, if money comes in, it goes into the product, and we build better products based on the money that comes in. So you genuinely can make a difference for an audience based on supporting a scene.
Jackie, what about the streamers and the content creators that you're working with? Because they're working in the same space as YouTubers and other influencers, because we've got to use the name, it's the name. How are they engaging with sponsors, and what are the sponsors asking of the content creators?
So sponsors are currently looking to work with content creators in regards to putting their logos on their overlays. So I think one of the most important differences between your standard influencer and a content creator would be the long format that they're broadcasting over. So your typical Instagram influencer might put up a post, a single story or something like that. It might get a lot of reach, but there's not a lot of, I think, declining attrition. One of the good things about being on Twitch is that you might have a 4-hour stream, a 6-hour stream, an 8-hour stream, and having your brand in front of the audience for that long definitely makes a higher attrition. The influence becomes more solid there, I think. And I guess there's different ways that they can actually use that influence as well, different in-stream mechanics that they can utilize. So emotes, you're even with Twitch as a platform, being able to utilize the pre and mid-roll advertising, events, lots of different ways that influencers are utilizing sponsors.
So one of the things that, like, I've been trying to figure out myself, like being new into the space and trying to figure out where Twitch fits and talking to brands and sponsors, is having that conversation of how do I compare what Twitch does with other things that sponsors and brands are now buying, right? So they have bought TV commercials for many, many years. They have bought spots and dots on TV and radio for many years. They're buying pre-roll. So how do you translate that to say, so they start seeing like for like? Because we are seeing media budgets and sponsorship budgets move into esports, but I'm finding that conversation of, but I know what that money is getting me, and this is unknown. It's probably a question for Lewis and then Ben.
I think
how do you solve that?
It comes back to what Nielsen was saying, where there's data around everything now. The beautiful thing about esports is it's digital. You can record a lot of this as long as you are putting in place the infrastructure to record, trackable links, having ways little games in the chat, because you can actually build in virtual games into the chat that can register how many people have shown interest in something. So I think if you're wondering about and worried about going into the unknown, just start looking at the trackable side of things and try and work out how do I implement something with tracking to know that I'm getting something and to know that I'm getting an ROI for something that I haven't really tried before.
Ben, what about yourself? Like talking to brands and agencies that go, we buy, McDonald's are on Channel 7 with the AFL footy, and they know we're going to be taught this or told what we're getting as a result. How does that then translate when you're looking at an esports event?
Yeah, we certainly have to, or have had to, adapt the way that we speak to these potential partners, because a lot of them, again, working with media agencies potentially, and a lot of them don't necessarily have an esports budget. Maybe they have a sports budget, they might have a digital budget, and they have expectations for that money, for that budget, on what they can get. And they'll say, well, when I buy advertising in sports, it costs X and I get Y.
Yep.
I want the same from you. And we can't necessarily give them the exact same metrics, to be honest. Like you can tell them what the numbers are, but they may not line up. It may be more expensive per person to come and sponsor some esports potentially. But what I try and say to them is like, well, if you could hit this market in traditional sports, you wouldn't be talking to me. That they're here. Yes, we're still at this point. And yes, I can give you the numbers and we can frame it out in exactly the same way as when you buy your traditional marketing. Yep. You spend in your TVCs on TV. But you have to understand you're in this with us at the moment because we're growing. So let's get in first.
Yeah, and you can't hit that 22-year-old male that's super engaged.
Yeah.
And that has been, and you mentioned before, you've got your sport or your sponsorship budget, your digital budget. I think there's a media buying budget that's sitting there that esports can get a chunk of. It's just a matter of how it gets pitched. Because I think it's the same as when digital just came out, and they were going, but we always spend our money on TV. We know what TV is. We know what radio is. It's like digital. It's early it was underpriced and people didn't realise, and people made a lot of there's people making a lot of money buying banner ads because they were driving it, and esports offering that for as I think Frank said before, a niche of a niche, super engaged niche. It's bigger than people think. But I think it is having those conversations with more agencies, with more brands, and working in an ecosystem that is going through a lot of change themselves.
And doing some education, a bit of educating the market of marketers, and setting those expectations early, I think.
But then also the other side, so stuff that you're doing and working with teams to go to appropriately value what they've got.
Yes. Right,
so that they are getting appropriate value. Like you said, well, at some point, you're coming to us because you want to reach that market. We need to say what this number is.
Also, not only that, you've got people that are saying, well, we used to buy on TV. That's when there were 7 channels. And then if you bought Fox Sport, cool, there were another 100 channels, but they were very niche. There's so much content now. There's almost infinite amount of content. I think there's a stat of YouTube where for every minute there's 700 minutes uploaded to YouTube at this point in time. So you can't ever catch up to the amount. So now you've got to find those really good big niches where you can have those conversations. And that's what esport has done. It's actually broken through that, hey, there's a lot of content out there, yet esports continues to grow and pick, and gaming in general has still picked up momentum, even though there's just more out there now.
So, Jake, a question for you, for content creators, and using Twitch as their primary platform, where do other platforms fit? How do they use other platforms to appropriately engage their audience and drive new audience? How important are different platforms, and which ones are the important ones?
Most content creators will focus on one particular platform. I think Twitch is very popular at doing that in gaming. They also seem to have the best mechanisms to do that, but they tend to focus mostly on the platform they stream on, so Twitch, and then your community building ones like Discord. After that, they would look at Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook is getting up there now.
Yep.
For anyone involved in the gaming business sort of side of things and really you'll notice that there are now influencers from gaming on LinkedIn as well. So it's starting to spread out.
Yeah, but it is a constant moving of your fans from different channels.
Yep.
There's a very much you've got to tell people you're streaming. So you've got to do it and remind them and put that alert out. And they each have
different functions as well. I mean, Instagram obviously tells an entirely different story, but you find that a lot of esports athletes are utilising their Instagram for fitness, gym selfies and...
So, big news in the recent week. Ninja, who was the most well-known streamer, and I've been using him in examples, and I think he was in 4 Super Bowl ads, had that peak moment of playing Fortnite with Drake. He's made the move and been enticed, I guess, moved to Mixer. Is this the start of the streaming wars?
I think that's a nice little bite. Honestly, I think it's a testament to the work that he's put in, and the work that we put in as well. Whenever you're onto something good, you start getting competitors coming along in the same way Man United used to have David Beckham, and then he went to Real Madrid. That's just going to be the nature of something that gets bigger and bigger and is at the scale that we're seeing now. And it means that you're probably going to get new superstars coming through, whether it be on Twitch, Mixer, Facebook Gaming, wherever. But it's an industry that's growing. So, of course, there's going to be interest coming from different directions.
I mean, it's the same as sport, right? We've seen, the big players, and I guess sport to a certain degree leverage the players to say, oh, who's going to be part of our TV rights? Oh, we've got this guy called Facebook, they're interested, and Twitter's interested, and it's effectively validating the market to say gaming is big enough that all the big players want to be part of it.
And you look at the big 4 that have streaming sites. It's Google, Amazon, Facebook, and Microsoft. They're not exactly the small players in the world. So it is legitimized. It's just about finding people and having those conversations properly now.
What's your take on it, Ben, as someone that's on stream and on multiple casts? How do you see the scene, again, shaking out? Who knows? But just the backwards and forwards is currently happening.
Yeah, on the Ninja topic, I think, it's kind of like being an influencer potentially is similar to being a professional sports person. You don't know how long you're going to be there for, right? In sports, it could be an injury. As an influencer, you don't know who's going to be the next up-and-comer. So for him, it's about, trying to secure his income for as long as he possibly can. So he's set for life now. If he wasn't before, I'm sure he was. But 3 mansions now instead of 1. In terms of platforms and things like that, who even knows where it's going to go? I think it's definitely a positive for esports. If you go back and you look at the pie of, I think it was your pie even, of revenue that we saw before for esports, and you see like advertising and sponsorship, this giant chunk down the bottom, right? And then there's a little bit of ticket sales, and maybe there's a little bit of media rights. And if you go and you compare that to traditional sports, media rights is this huge...
Media rights is a third.
Yeah, exactly. So For esports in particular, media rights is the next big thing, and that's going to help us, I suspect, lift it up, grow it further. It's a big missing part right now. The answer is not there where it comes from. Does that mean it's going to platforms that charge? Does that mean it's going to linear TV? Probably not. Who knows? But it's a missing piece of the pie right now, right? So anything that increases the number of platforms where perhaps, these platforms are going to want companies to come across, or I see an influencer moving from one platform to another identical to, 9 losing cricket or gaining cricket or whatever, tennis, whatever it may be, it's exactly the same.
It definitely is. And I think that whole where esports end up or where influence end up is going to come down to audience, right? Twitch is now both being in esports, but then in traditional sports. Recently, just last week, announced capturing the rights of the USA basketball games.
Which means the Boomers game that's happening in a couple of weeks will be on Twitch.
Yeah, the Boomers game will be on Twitch. You've already had a long relationship with the NBA, with the G League being on Twitch. And I think that's also exciting to, open up Twitch to a completely new audience and then realise those people are obviously most likely playing games as well.
Well, look, one of the slides here was, I think basketball was second in terms of popularity of gamers. So that means you've got Twitch influencers, if we want to use that term, that like basketball. And all of a sudden, if they're watching a Boomers game with the USA, instead of it being the commentary team that whoever the network is that came up, that have got the broadcast rights are commentating on this, all of a sudden you can start giving those rights to Panda TV, who is a prominent influencer here in Australia, and you get his take on it, or you give it to Loser Fruit that we're talking about before, and maybe they know nothing about basketball, but maybe her chat does, and you change the way that content is going to be viewed and experienced by a lot of people. And I think that's going to be a really big play in the next couple of years, that you'll see a lot of people coming in with, oh yeah, I love cricket, yeah, I'll co-stream the cricket, that'll be fun. And I think that's the next step for a lot of sports, is that's how you engage with that young audience.
And I think that's also some of the opportunity in esports. I'm surprised how often I hear in esports, we've always done it like that. And I'm like, 7 years, 8 years, guys. It's not long, but there is also, on the other side of it, a lot of innovation of, hey, how do we do this differently? And a lot more freedom. There's not the contracts that are in place with current sports. If football or tennis or cricket want to do something, I'm sure there's a lawyer there that says they can't. Whereas there is a bit more flexibility in esports. What does the broadcast look like? What could we do? Is it multiple, engaging streamers to be commentators? How do we better integrate the chat? Those kind of things that I think make it really exciting. The big broad question, what do you think esports fans are looking for from an esports broadcast? I'm going to start with you, Jackie.
Okay. I think from a viewer's perspective, they're looking for a bit of creativity. They're looking for the authenticity that you mentioned. They're definitely looking to be entertained. I feel like they don't want to be overly distracted. Yep. But I like a bit of creativity in the way that brands are being able to be utilised on Twitch. I saw a streamer recently getting an Uber Eats delivery to his streaming rig. So he's there on stream and he's talking through the game, and then his Uber Eats guy comes in and delivers him some food, and he sits there and eats while he's talking to the delivery driver. And I think something like that nearly every gamer can relate to. So I think there's some really good opportunity for creativity there.
What about yourself, Ben? When you're having those pre-production meetings and saying, what do we want this broadcast to be? What do you think fans are looking for?
The difficult side of me would say the answer to that is they want it in 4K, they want it at 5,000 frames per second, and they want you to pay them to watch, which is obviously the complete opposite of traditional sports. In reality, they want something that's authentic. They want it to be good quality, because it should be, to be fair. They want it to be engaging. They want to have a fun time, but at the same time, they don't want it, as Jackie said, to overshadow what they're actually there for, right? And that does change by game. It changes between audience. So what you could get away with in a Fortnite broadcast is very different to what you could get away with in a Counter-Strike broadcast. For example, I think that, for example, the guys who broadcast League of Legends here in Australia, the commentators at the OPL, the Australian OPL, like the players in this, fantastic. But we're not getting the same views that you're getting for Europe, for example. But the commentators go out there, they're painting during the middle of a broadcast. You know what I mean? They're doing these things that are, and they're getting the views because of it. So it really does depend, but you need to make sure that you understand who your audience is and you're giving them what they want, because there's a lot on at the same time and it's all free.
Yep. What about yourself, Lewis?
I think people want to feel proud that this is where we've got to at this point in time. Like, this isn't, again, going back to gamers and the world of esports was on the defensive for a while. We had to argue that this was legitimate, and now you've got people going, "Oh, did you see Bugger? He just won $3 million US." And that gets posted up there because everybody's like, "See that? Like, we can do this. This is legitimate." But the argument still has to happen, and the conversation still has to happen. So if you're not putting on a good, high-quality esports event, it's something that the entire community goes, but this isn't what we're proud of. This isn't what we want to be showcasing, what we want to see going forward. So I'd say it's that.
And do you think there's a part of the broadcast, back to the question that I had to Shuey and MJ and Frank, of how can the broadcast connect that gamer to the cast? How do you tackle that as a shoutcaster, Ben?
It is tough, and it's also tough because you're not necessarily
especially if you're not a gamer, like if you're not playing the game.
Yeah, and particularly if everyone who's watching isn't a fan of the game to the same level either. So, you know, if you go and we do Fortnite at the Australian Open, that audience is a very diverse audience of mums and dads and kids and people who will know far more about Fortnite than I ever will, plus people who have never watched a Fortnite game in their life. So interacting with them and getting a connection with them to the game and what they're watching on those levels is difficult to achieve for everyone. So it's about, I suppose, finding the best parts of each and trying to touch on those. For hardcore esports fans, I think it's about trying to find ways to potentially work with Lewis and the guys at Twitch or whatever your broadcast platform is, to have that interaction with chat, either through social media or give them a way. Because let's be real, we've got this amazing interactive platform.
Yep.
And they want to be a part of it. And I think that's the one thing, or not the one thing, one of the things that influencers do well is that they make their audience feel like they're part of their community. It may be more difficult with 100,000 people watching an esports game, but at the same time, that's what we're competing with as an esports broadcast company, trying to bring them back across and have them have some affinity with us when there's so much else going on as well.
But it is a challenge, and again, if I look at it from a sports point of view, working with the FFA and the Socceroos, and you'll have your hardcore fans, your football fans that follow the Socceroos, know the rules. Then when it's World Cup time, your AFL and NRL fans go, yeah, I follow the Socceroos, don't know what offside rule is, don't it? And so you've got to find this balance. And this is the constant battle I would have with the FFA guys, to say, we need to talk to those fans. But as soon as you explain the offside rule on the Twitter account, all the hardcore football fans go, we don't need to be told that, right? And so it's this balance between, serving your hardcore fans that are in, but then be welcoming enough to the new fans, I think is the challenge. It's a broadcasting challenge, not an esports broadcasting challenge, but I think there's part that the streamers can be part of that.
Oh, absolutely. I've seen them even on current events, esports matches, just joining in and watching it with their chat. They might sit there and watch an entire match and have their own discussion based on it, bringing up all different points and different perspectives. And those sorts of things can be far more, I guess, entertaining for somebody who doesn't necessarily know what's going on.
And do you think, like I've spoken to you about it, you think there should be more crossover of what esports is and what streamers are, and having a bit more conversation? So because Twitch is really built on this overlapping audiences. And
It is. And yes, I think one of the biggest problems esports has at the moment is personality. It needs the competitors in a lot of areas. You wouldn't know who's actually on the team. You know the team itself, but you have no idea who these players are. Whereas you look at traditional sport, a lot of times people get new members and new fans because somebody just joined. Like Cristiano Ronaldo joins Juventus. Now they've got a whole bunch of Juventus fans. Del Piero comes to Sydney FC. The whole of Italy is now a Sydney FC fan. So it does need a bit more personality from that perspective. And I think the more you see esports players having time on their hands and it becoming more professional, that's when you're going to see them being able to start streaming and start building that audience, because the skill's there. Like, you're watching people at the highest level play these games, so you're already watching, you're gravitated towards them for that reason. Then they've just got to show off who they are as a personality, and then people are going to give them more time and more care, and the whole industry benefits from that.
And that's a big part of broadcast, right? The hero building and the storytelling around the players, I think, agree. The players have to do some heavy lifting, because the broadcast can say how great they are, but if they're not engaging on the platform, on all platforms, it makes it really tough. So I think it is a mix of that too, how they can be, I guess, part of the scene.
If you ever want to look at the best example, it's Pasha. There's a guy who used to play for a Polish Counter-Strike team. His name was it was Pasha Biceps. He was just a tank. And on his Instagram, he's always at the gym, taking his dog for a walk, going out with his wife, like just being a personable person. And when he came onto Twitch, the first time he streamed, he got 40,000 concurrents, which is, you imagine that's the amount of the SCG fills.
Yep.
Just sitting there, watching him and wanting to hang out with him, because he's been this character within the scene for so many years. And there's no reason that every player can't be doing that.
So just for the audience and people who don't understand the room, you drop the 40,000 concurrents. So explain some of the stats and how they work, and I guess what is successful on Twitch, at least in this market.
So a lot of other platforms will look at views as the big pie, the shiny metric in the sky. We look at it in minutes watched. So if you have, let's say, 10,000 people watching for 10 minutes each, you have 100,000 minutes at that point in time. Thank God I got my maths right at that point in time.
I was thinking I'm glad you framed that easy by the end.
So the longer you have people watching for, the more engaged they are, the more they're chatting, the more you can have a conversation with them, and they can kind of work out, okay, this brand's come along and is sponsoring, but they're doing all the right things. I know one of the best examples is Geico, who sponsored a Rocket League tournament in the US. And instead of the prize money being his $50,000, they gave the top 4 teams' players a salary for the year. So they became semi-professional to professional. But if you've got somebody sitting there for 30 seconds and they have no idea of that concept, then they just see Geico and go, I don't really care. But if they're sitting there engaged for, our average view time a day per person per day is 106 minutes on the platform. So if you've got somebody sitting there for over an hour a day, you can have that conversation and explain why you're trying to help. Explain why your brand or your product or whatever you're trying to push to them is worthwhile of their time and listening to, and what you are doing to help these guys. So for us, concurrence, which is how many people are watching at that specific time.
Yep.
And then minutes watched is if these guys are watching for that time, then how many minutes does that generate?
And do you think, is that part of the answer to the question from before, how you do explain it is different? Because views are different all over the web, right? A view on Facebook and a view on YouTube are different, and the digital,
views still have their place. Like, if you are getting a lot of views, you are hitting a lot of eyeballs.
Yep.
It's just whether you are hitting them in the way that you want them to. But yeah, for us, it really is like, what is the longevity of somebody sitting down and engaging with this?
And it's part of that piece that Ben was talking about before. It's different because it's this deeper engagement. So again, if you're saying, your watch time is 3 hours, that's someone's watching the whole thing for 3 hours. It's like you're engaged at a cinema. And you're sitting in the cinema and you're watching, it's a different level of engagement.
But you're also annoying everyone by typing on your phone to everyone else in the cinema at the exact same time. And there's even that metric, right? I can go back and I can say, hey, I had this many views, I had this amount of time watched, and I also had 100,000 messages typed in chat.
Yep.
Like, you can't say that people type, like those people are clearly engaged with the content. So even if they are spamming emotes, they're there, they're partaking.
But it is also coming out with, again, back to your point, I guess, things that are trackable and showing that there's action. At the grand final for Split 1 for the OPL, they had a skin giveaway. And they said, when the Baron goes, skin giveaway. Shunk.
Yep.
Right? 1,000 skins gone like that. Right? And if you went to a Channel 7 executive and said, oh, can we just put something down the bottom that says people to claim a Big Mac after X goal? Like, they wouldn't get that engagement. And it's because they're locked in there.
Yeah, absolutely. And that goes back to something you were mentioning before, is the fans that are on the fence, the people that you're trying to grab as the next group of fans. Reward them. Like, why are you not traditional television is the reward is you get this good quality content. But if you start going, one of the big things that we do on Twitch is drops. So there are publishers that will say, you're watching this person at this point in time, you have a chance of winning some in-game loot. That is saying, thank you very much for watching. We appreciate it. Here you go. Here's a potential prize out of that. And that could be transitioned quite easily into going back to the FFA. Like, if you've got people watching football for X amount of time, take $20 off your registration fees next year. And that's the way you're going to bring the next generation through.
Okay, before we wrap up, does anyone have any streaming or Twitch-related questions before we wrap things up? No? Well, hopefully I'll be able to push to a live stream. I don't know if the teams have turned up. But I want to thank, and can you please put your hands together to thank our panel, to talk about broadcast, Jackie, Ben and Lewis. Thank you very much, guys.
New workshops on audience, content, distribution, valuation, and pitch following Sports Geek's Digital to Dollars process. Go to digitaltodollars.com.
Thanks again to Lewis Mitchell, Ben Green and Jackie Garrett to be part of that panel. I know I've learned a lot about Twitch as a platform and streaming as a platform and how the audience engages with streaming and esports broadcasts overall. I think it's still a developing scene. I'm really looking forward to seeing where it does develop. This is the last episode in this sub-series, special series around money in esports. I would love your feedback. Please send me an email, Sean@sportsgeekhq.com. Will find me at Sean Callanan if you want to send me a tweet. These episodes have been released both in the Sports Geek feed, so if you're a regular Sports Geek listener, I hope the frequency of having 5 episodes in a row hasn't been too daunting. If you're a new listener and you've found this via SG Esports, welcome. If you want more content like this, more interviews about the world of sports, technology and marketing, you can find that on the Sports Geek feed. Simply search for Sports Geek in your podcast player. Or you can go to sportsgeekhq.com to find all episodes. That's it for this episode. I'd love your feedback on this as a series. Do you want more sub-series like this, topic-based, around a world like esports? I'm looking at different ways for the podcast to develop, and this is one of them, of repurposing content from an event like Money in Esports. Thanks very much to Jason and Lou and Matt and the guys at Tribal Sports around the collaboration of Money in Sport. Really enjoyed doing the day and I guess educating the industry on the world of esports. It's something that I know is paramount for everyone in esports. I thought there was a lot of good discussions and a lot of bullish conversations around where esports is headed, both here in Australia but also globally. So yeah, don't let this be the only time that we connect. We have 2 regular newsletters that go out. Sports Geek News, that's been going out for 6 years on a weekly basis, is pretty much a roundup of all the links and articles that I read on a weekly basis. So if you want to keep up to date with what I'm reading around the sports, technology, marketing, digital space, you can do that with Sports Geek News, sportsgeekhq.com/SGN. And then additionally, now I'm diving more into the esports space with my own team, Gravitas. I'm obviously reading a lot more in the esports space, so that we are doing a regular fortnightly email at sgesports.com. So if you're interested in that, please go to SG Esports and sign up. last thing, it's a session that I'm currently doing with a bunch of different international clients, and it's valid for both Sports Geek clients and Esports clients. It's a session called Pick My Brain. It's a 2-hour session via GoToMeeting where we dive in on the topics and the issues that you're looking to do, whether that's reviewing your commercial strategy and finding opportunities, reviewing a content piece, sharing some global trends and what you can do. Pretty much the scope is all over to you. Knowing that my goal as Sports Geek and now Esports is to help drive more revenue from a digital initiatives. So if you want to book in for those, you can simply go to sportsgeekhq.com/pickmybrain. Find a 2-hour slot that works for you. You book there and we'll chat via GoToMeeting for a really good deep dive 2-hour session. And my job is to give you more value than what you pay every time you do it. So if you've got a question about that, you can always send me an email, sean@sportsgeekhq.com. Until next episode, when we return to regular programming on the Sports Geek feed, my name is Sean Callanan, and you've been listening to Sports Geek.
Join Sports Geek Nation access to exclusive Slack and Facebook groups with regular Q&A sessions with Sean Callanan. Go to sportsgeeknation.com to join. Need help with your digital rate card? Not sure how to price your assets? Is there a disconnect between digital and commercial? That is where Sean works best, in digital divorce counselor mode. Book a time for a call with Sean to discuss the Sports Geek process. Go to sportsgeekhq.com/phone call.
Go to sportsgeekhq.com for more sports digital marketing resources.